So, Ashley, I think Maine might secretly be one of the creepiest states in New England.
Really? Creepier than Salem, Massachusetts? That's a bold claim.
Listen, Salem's got witches, sure, but Maine has lighthouses full of ghosts, woods that swallow people whole, and possibly demon hoof prints in the snow.
Okay, I'm listening. Lobsters and demons? Let's go.
Today, we're warming up for our Paranormal Passport Maine edition with a mix of Reddit's scariest stories and a few ChatGPT creations. So buckle up, because Maine isn't just about Stephen King. It is Stephen King.
Do 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 do. Welcome back to the Afterlife Hotline. Welcome in if you're new. I am Ashley.
I'm Denisha.
And today we're doing some ChatGPT / Reddit stories for Maine. Since when you're listening to this, we're in Maine. No, we're about to head to Maine.
Well, yeah, we leave the following day after this uploads.
We're leaving tomorrow for Maine. And we are so excited.
So excited.
So ready.
So excited. It's the
Woo!
Kevin Hart. So excited.
Yeah.
So excited. Woo, woo,
Ooh, ooh. Also, if you guys have any personal stories about paranormal stuff in Maine, please let us know, because that is one of our favorite places in the entire world, and we would like to hear about them.
And potentially talk about them.
Yeah. Yep. Also, if anybody listening is... they're not going to. Okay, anyway. I was going to say if anybody's listening is going to the Paranormal Expo. We'll see you there. But all of our one viewers.
Hello, Dad.
He ain't going. Wish he was. That'd be cool.
Well, on the plus side, maybe we'll get some new friends from the Paranormal Expo.
Yeah. Yep. Hi to those who are going back and watching our videos if we met you at the Paranormal Expo in Maine.
Leave us a comment.
Hello. I don't know why I just did that. Ignore me. Okay, my first one. Hi, Afterlife Hotline. I wanted to share something that happened to me a few years back in Maine. I grew up in a small coastal town near Bar Harbor, and there's this old abandoned lighthouse about 20 minutes from where I lived. Locals call it the Black Harbor Light. I made it do it in a way of like someone sending in an email.
I realized.
Because you were like...
I was very confused. I was like, wait, hold up.
The story goes that the last keeper there went missing in the 1940s. They found his logbook open on the desk, the lantern still lit, and his boots by the door, but no sign of him. Since then, the place has been locked up, but everyone in town dares each other to sneak in. One night, a couple of my friends and I decided to check it out. We climbed through a broken window and made our way up the spiral stairs. It was freezing inside, like the air had weight to it. The higher we climbed, the louder we kept hearing the sound. What sounded like boots on the steps above us, except no one else was there. When we got to the top, I swear I saw someone standing at the lantern. Just a shadowy figure, tall, broad-shouldered, wearing what looked like one of those old-fashioned coats. But here's the thing. It wasn't solid. I could see the beam of light cutting right through him. And then, clear as day, we heard a man's voice whisper, "Keep the light burning." We bolted down the stairs so fast I almost tripped. None of us ever went back, but sometimes when I drive past the coast at night, I swear I can see the lantern turning, even though that lighthouse hasn't been in use for decades. I don't know what we saw, but I'll never forget that voice. Love, a friend in Maine.
Wow.
Woo! Not a true story. I wish it was.
Shit, please send us stories.
We can read them.
We want to,
on the podcast.
We want to hear your stories.
And share everybody your stories.
So my first one is the lighthouse at Seguin Island. I think Seguin, Seguin.
Mm-hmm.
Cool.
Sounds right.
You know how
Cool.
You know how Maine has that reputation? Foggy coast, pine forest, and those lighthouses that feel more like tombstones than beacons.
But they're beautiful.
They are. Well, there's one place locals almost never talk about, and if they do, they lower their voices. Seguin Island. It is a real island, by the way. I looked it up.
Is this a ChatGPT or Reddit?
Chat.
Okay.
The tale starts in the mid-1800s when a new keeper and his young wife took the post. They were isolated. No neighbors, no shops, just the ocean pounding on the cliffs. Winters were brutal. Supply boats were late more often than not. By February, cabin fever wasn't just an expression, it was living between those two walls. The wife, desperate for a distraction, begged her husband for a piano. He scraped his money together and he brought one over by boat. It arrived with only a single sheet of music. One song. She played it. Over and over. Morning to night. Weeks on end.
Oh.
Imagine that. Storm winds howling outside. Waves slamming the rocks. This eerie, broken melody on a loop. Never stopping. The story says that the husband tried to beg her to stop. And when she refused, something inside him snapped. One night, as she sat at the keys, he grabbed an axe. First, he silenced the piano, and then he silenced her.
Oh my God.
When the next supply boat came, the crew found the keeper dead too. He'd taken his own life, with the axe still in his sticky hand. Now, here's where it gets unsettling. People who have stayed on the island since swear they hear music. Just kidding. People who stayed on the island since swear the music never stopped. The Coast Guard keepers, even visiting sailors, claim to hear the faint piano music drifting across the island, especially on nights when the fog rolls in just a little too thick and the winds cut sharp. Some say they've seen a woman in white pacing near the cliffs, hands moving like she's pressing invisible keys. And in 1986, when the lighthouse was automated and the last human keeper left, he swore that on his final night, as he locked the tower door behind him, he heard that same piano echoing from the empty quarters. He didn't wait to see where it was coming from. To this day, locals won't stay overnight on the island. The island is open to visitors in the summer, but no one lingers after dark. Because if you do, and the fog drifts in, they say you'll hear it, the song with no end. And maybe, if you listen too long, you won't want to stop playing it either.
Ooh, it's like the Pied Piper. Makes you do things. Right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. I am surprised ChatGPT came up with that.
It sure did.
Silence the piano, then silenced her. I haven't heard ChatGPT come up with something so gruesome.
I didn't ask for gore, but I said I wanted a horse.
You know, anytime this goes against our policies. Because it can't be too...
I didn't ask for gore. I said to not do gore.
Anyway, the thing in the Maine woods. Last fall, Ashley and Denisha decided to take a section hike on the Appalachian Trail in Maine. It was supposed to be just a fun getaway, a couple of days in the 100-mile wilderness before the weather turned cold. The first day went fine, the trail was beautiful, and the leaves were turning red and gold, and the air smelled like pine and wood smoke.
I'm so close I can almost smell it.
But as the sun... We are feral for fall.
You're feral for Maine.
And Maine. But as the sun started to go down, they realized they hadn't seen another hiker all day. By the time they set up their tent, the forest had grown unnaturally quiet. No wind, no crickets, just silence. That night, around 2 a.m., Denisha woke to the sound of footsteps circling the tent. Slow, heavy, crunching in the leaves. She thought maybe it was a moose, until Ashley whispered, "That's not an animal." The steps kept going around and around. Then they stopped. Ashley reached for the flashlight. It's raccoons. Eating hot chocolate. Ashley reached for the flashlight and unzipped the tent just enough to peek out, and that's when she froze. I would not do that. Standing at the tree line was a figure. It was taller than any person should be, its arms dangling long and unnatural, almost brushing the ground. Its skin was pale, almost glowing in the moonlight. But the worst part, it had no face. Just smooth, empty skin where eyes and a mouth should have been.
Slender Man?
I guess so. Denisha pulled Ashley back inside, whispering, "Don't look at it. Don't look at it." They zipped the tent shut and stayed awake until morning, listening to it move slowly back into the trees. When daylight finally came, they looked around the campsite. No tracks, no broken branches, no sign that anything had been there at all. Except carved into the bark of a nearby tree were the 3 words, fresh and deep. Don't come back. Ashley and Denisha never talked about what they saw in the 100-mile wilderness. But if you ever find yourself camping on that stretch of the Appalachian Trail, listen carefully when the woods go quiet, because something out there remembers them, and it might be waiting for you next.
Ew.
Woo, 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 woo.
My first thought was Slender Man there. I'm not going to lie.
It sounds like Slender Man.
So my next one is the Devil's Footprints.
Ooh.
The snow is falling when we wake up. Heavy, silent flakes drifting past the windows of the cabin. Everything outside is buried, untouched, smooth as glass. I rub the fog from the window with my sleeve, and that's when I see them. Ashley, I whisper, come here. Across the yard, cutting through the snow in a straight line, are tracks. Not boot prints, not animal prints, just sharp, cloven shapes.
Cloven?
Cloven.
What the hell is that?
Poof.
Oh. Okay.
Two at a time, evenly spaced, like they were made from something tall, walking on two legs. We followed them with our eyes as they crossed the yard, climbed onto the porch, and kept going right to the side of the cabin. No slips, no drag marks, just perfect line of hoof prints going straight up, disappearing over the roof. Neither of us say anything. We just back away from the window. That night, the storm deepens. The wind howls, the trees bend, and we're sitting on the couch under blankets trying to ignore the creaks in the cabin. And that's when we hear it. Scratch. We freeze. It's faint at first, almost like branches brushing against the glass, but the trees outside aren't close enough for that. Then again, scratch. Pause. Scratch. Slow. Purposeful. Ashley grabs my arm, and I can feel her nails digging in. We don't breathe. I force myself to look, and that's when I see them. On the window, pressed against the glass from outside, two wet, cloven shapes, steam curling up the cold air. I stumble back, pulling Ashley with me. The shapes don't move, they just sit there, silent, heavy, and waiting. And then, just as suddenly as it started, the scratching stops. The window is empty, but the marks remain. There's this old saying in Biddeford, Ashley. They say once you've seen the devil's footprints, they don't leave you alone. And once you hear the story, it follows you. And I can't stop thinking, what if this is how it starts? What if when we step outside, tonight after recording, and we see them in the dirt, just a perfect line, straight hoof prints leading right to the door. So if you hear scratching tonight, don't look.
No. 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 Mm-mm. Ain't no devil coming for us. You can stay where you came from. Okay. Now these are the Reddit ones.
Yee.
The strange woods of Maine. Apparently Maine's woods are very strange. I like to preface this particular event that happened to me in my youth by saying I've experienced far more paranormal activity, looking back, than I had ever really took the time to consider. That being said, I've had more stories, not many more, that I might share in the future. I've already shared a few, not necessarily under the subreddit. As a child growing up in the backwoods of Maine, I've heard my fair share of strange things in the night. Typically, it'll be coyotes hunting or the prowl of another nocturnal creature. As a child, I was never particularly afraid of the dark, but I knew dangers lurked in the absence of light, so at night, I played indoors. During the daytime, however, there were never any restrictions. On one summer afternoon, I was riding my bike down the street that branched off my dead-end road. Our only neighbors being a relative and a couple of decent folk just down the way. Otherwise, quiet since woods. I would make this ride quite often as there was no town, but the stretch was fun to ride because I could pedal my heart out without having to slow down in order to veer. On this day, I made my normal round up the road only to turn around and head back. I had an uneasy feeling on the ride up, which was the only abnormality. I felt like I was being watched. Something told me to look towards the woods on my right, and I did so reluctantly. Deep in the woods amongst the pines, I saw a black, almost liquid thing peer out from behind a tree. My heart dropped. I took off pedaling as fast as my feet would take me, keeping a steady eye on the woods to my right. This thing kept pace effortlessly, darting from tree to tree like a primordial ooze. It was either playing or stalking prey. I wasn't about to stop and find out. Pedaling so hard I thought my chain would snap, I knew my uncle's house was approaching on the left. I spun out in the dirt, ditched the bike, and ran to his door, frantically knocking. I turned around to see if whatever it was would be making its way towards me. I didn't see anything. My uncle opened the door, cigarette in his mouth, asking me what was wrong. I explained to him what I saw. He grabbed a rifle and said, "Probably just a bear," with slight concern in his voice. I've never seen a bear move like that, I said out of breath. Yep, they'll do that, he said as he peered through the blinds. To this day, I don't know what I saw, but something tells me my uncle sure did. It's been 20 years, and I've since lost contact with my uncle. Maybe someday I'll reach out and ask. I don't think that was a bear.
That was not a bear.
Your uncle's just trying to
make it a little bit
ease your mind.
Yeah. Yeah, that wasn't a bear.
No.
Okay, so mine that starts the Reddit story. I don't have a title for it. I got her name though. Etheria.
That's a pretty name.
I'm 31 and I've lived in rural Maine for most of my second half of life. I've spent a lot of time outside as a teenager and felt that eerie I'm being watched followed vibe quite often. I felt it less often as an adult, but it's probably a combination of not spending much time outdoors and also the fact that I've become more jaded and skeptical over time. I did have a few odd experiences I can recall, particularly in a local cemetery. I was an annoying, brooding goth kid in my teenage years, so I spent a lot of time there. On one occasion, I was sitting under a tree, reading with headphones on, when I got this odd feeling. I closed my book, turned off my headphones, and heard dozens of crows cawing. They were circling around the tree that I was sitting. I decided to get up to avoid getting crapped on, and they literally just followed me out of the cemetery and landed on a fence to watch me pass. On another occasion, I found some sort of torn up carcass along the tree line at the back of the cemetery. I couldn't quite identify what sort of animal it was. Maybe it was a raccoon, but something had viciously slaughtered it and then left the remains behind. It was probably a coyote or some other natural predator, but it gave me a creeped out feeling and it stuck with me. I had that same sensation of being watched when I found it. Around the same time that those two things happened, I was home alone at night, laying on the couch in the living room watching TV. There was a huge bang on the wall behind the couch. The only thing on that other side of the wall was a small porch and stairs leading down from our apartment, and I couldn't find any explanation as to what that noise was when I looked out there. I'm still not sure what happened, but I definitely slept with the lights on that night. And then there's the houses. I only mentioned my outdoor experience at first because you seem to be focused on that in the original post, because this is a commenter. But the creepy houses are something else. My mom bumped into something that wasn't there in her childhood home when she was snooping through her mom's room, and often felt weird vibes when she was growing up. When we moved into that same house 2 decades later, wherein I was a teenager, I constantly felt like I was being watched while I slept upstairs. The house had been abandoned and trashed and was in the process of being restored when we lived there. Once, I even found one of my missing belongings, an old ring, laying on the floor of the room that I had never been in. When I was feeling nosy. I took it back, and then it disappeared again a week later, never to be found.
Like, what, taking my shit?
We've also had dishes mysteriously fall from the kitchen counters, and a TV and stereo that would jump around from normal to max volume regularly. To this day, I still rationalize it as power surges, but I can't explain why I found my ring in that room.
That's interesting. You have something that likes to mess with you a lot. Nope. I can't imagine how much power they have to have in order to actually like move physical
things around.
Yeah. Well, wouldn't you know, this one's called The Woods of Maine. Seems to be a theme. My dad grew up in the 70s in a wooded area in Maine. It was a tiny neighborhood with woods surrounding the outer part. My dad had all sorts of unexplained activity in his mother's house, but this is the one that stuck with me. My dad was around 9 or 10. He couldn't sleep. Right beside his bed was a window, and he could easily look out it from his bed. He heard noises outside, and he got excited because he thought it was a moose or some wild animal, so he whipped open the shade. There was no moose. Looking back at my father was a little boy his age, maybe a bit younger. He wasn't sure exactly what he was seeing. It was very foggy, but it was undeniable that he was looking at a little boy, a little redhead boy, with overalls on and one of those stupid propeller hats. My dad wanted to close the shade and pretend he never saw him, but he just couldn't look away. The boy smiled and waved, began to walk away, becoming harder for my dad to see. Eventually, the boy disappeared into the fog. It was dark, and there was a thick fog. It was easy for my dad to convince himself he imagined the whole thing. I think little kids find it easier to convince themselves nothing happened. They just have an overactive imagination. That's what adults always tell children anyways. My dad was over at a friend's house a few days later. They were outside shooting BB guns, normal kids in the 70s freedom type playing. The friend's dad was working on a car. My dad tells his friend the story, thinking that they would both laugh at how silly my dad was. My dad told the friend, and the friend's eyes widened and he lost color in his face. The friend books it over to his dad. My dad panics a bit, thinking the friend was telling his dad that he was trying to scare him and my dad would get in trouble. The boy tells his dad, Dad, he saw the boy with the funny hat too. This took place in Glenburn.
Wow.
Yeah.
Also, editing Ashley, thumbnail Ashley. I would like a propeller
A little
hat.
propeller hat. Sounds good to me, if I can find one.
So this one is shocking encounter while camping deep in the Maine woods. In 1998, my family and I went on our canoe camping trip in the Aroostook County, Maine, which pretty much is as far north as you can get. What's in your head right now?
Nothing.
Okay. There's a stream that feeds off a lake and eventually dumps into the St. John River. We had dropped off at a bridge that crosses the stream and spent a couple of days drifting near town to the St. John River fishing and camping. And we'd pick up where the stream had ended. This is in the middle of nowhere, about as pristine of wilderness as you can get. At dusk on day 2, we had set up on this island that splits the stream. The water was pretty low, and we'd have to portage around the island anyway, as it was too rocky to canoe down the little stretch. We got camp set up and a fire started just before dusk. My parents were cooking dinner alongside a couple of nice fat brook trout we had caught earlier that day. Nice. My sister and I were just fooling around throwing rocks in the stream. Suddenly, our mom calls us over in a little bit of a panicked voice. We instantly saw why. Our dad was standing with a stranger a little ways from our camp. The man was pretty short, like about 5'3", white in complexion, had a bushy wild beard, and was wearing clothes that looked like they were made from burlap sacks. He was leaning on a musket like a walking stick. He had a backpack of sorts, made from what looked like burlaps and sticks tied together. He had animal furs rolled up on top of his backpack, and he looked as shocked to see us as we were to see him. He sounded like he was speaking French, but my mother, who could speak some French, could maybe understand a word out of 10. He pointed at us and then behind himself and kept saying something along the lines of tattoo sack. My mother pointed at him and asked if he was Quebec or Canada, and he looked really confused. He seemed really interested in my father's jacket and also seemed really interested in our camp and kept pointing at our tents and canoes and was definitely asking questions, but we had no idea what he was saying. Eventually, my dad, who was already weary of the guy, motioned him to go away. My mother was doing like a go away motion with her hand and saying leave in French, and he seemed to get the message. He waded through the knee-high water and just vanished to the other side and disappeared. Like as soon as he hit the other side, he just vanished, with all of us looking at him. We were all pretty freaked out at this point. My mother was like, let's pack up and go right now. My dad convinced her to stay one more night as moving camp, and the portage in the dark wasn't the best idea.
It's always the guys.
Always. My dad said he would stay awake until dawn to keep watch in an effort to comfort us, plus he had his pistol with him. We were all talking just about how weird the situation was when my sister said, yeah, and he had no shoes on, just a bunch of, like, leather. The whole situation freaked us out. To this day, we have no idea what we saw. It wasn't a ghost or anything, as this guy was clearly trying to communicate with us and was clearly aware of us. We had gone to the same camping trip 3 times, and this was the first time that we had seen him and the last time per my mother's orders.
Wow. I think they came across a mountain man.
Probably, yeah.
Yeah. Just somebody who lives out there. You know, there was, because I think I had actually read that on Reddit. It sounded familiar once you got to the part where she was waving the guy away. I had read that one. And somebody said in the comments in the area that was in, that there was like World War II people there from like way back.
And they never
managed to get away from the area. So they were just living out there off grid, that they think
I saw that
been.
comment too.
But it doesn't make sense as to why he just vanished.
Yeah, and it also doesn't make sense as to why he'd be speaking.
Unless he's a ghost of one of those guys.
True.
So I don't know. Yeah. Well, that definitely convinced me Maine is more than moose and LL Bean boots.
Exactly. Between haunted pianos, hoof prints in the snow, and whatever Reddit refuses to sleep over, Maine is giving us plenty to scream about.
And this was just the warm-up.
Next time, we're taking you on a full trip with our Paranormal Passport Maine edition. Legends, haunting, and maybe a lobster ghost or two.
We're not doing lobster ghosts.
We're going to see. Bye.
Bye.